blogger.
So Leute, die Vorstellung geht gleich los und wir sind jetzt heute auf ICOs, 3 verschiedene ICOs werden vorgestellt und der EOS Coin.
With candidates. So as it starts off, Steve Jobs pointed out the best way to predict the future is to invent it, and we agree. So on 4/20, we launched NextRx and started inventing it. So what's the big deal? We want to create a system where the patient comes first. Basically, a system that combines patient data security with speed and convenience. And above all, a system that rewards patients. That's where our exchange comes in. Basically, each patient gets their own QR code for one scan check-in. But, better than me explaining it, let me, hopefully, is this working? Okay, sorry. And we have an RX Pass kiosk, which is assigned at the dispensaries for 1 minute registration or 1 scan check-in. Let's see what the problem is. Convenience and security combined with rewarding points. So, finally that basically brings us to our campaign, which, if I can get there,
Not that interesting
just a second. Oh, somehow I seem to have lost that page. I don't quite know what happened there. Well, okay, that's a bit embarrassing. Anyway, bottom line is this: we're launching what we call a joint ICO, and in our case, the ICO stands for Initial Crowd Offering. Why? Because we already have a live equity crowdfunding campaign on Pandana. At the same time, we are selling our exchange medallions, which basically come with 5,000 our exchange points. The objective is essentially to get funding in order to redevelop the system to make it scalable, not to mention secure. So I definitely hope that we can count on your support, especially when it comes to the medallions, which, by the way, you can purchase both with dollars and or Bitcoin. So for details, oops, I can't see it here, just go to nextrx.net. Oh, there it is, no, not quite. So thank you very much indeed, I appreciate it.
Cryptocurrency extremely low. That's 85% of the people in the Middle East that are unbanked. A lot of the problems that you see in the Middle East are currency related. A lot of the issues are economic related. You just saw what happened in Iran about a month ago. You had people in the streets protesting the price of eggs. People came out. Can you imagine that happening here? Can you imagine going out and protesting the price of eggs? So this is why we are coming to the market. We actually want to make a significant change. So if you look at this room, imagine 85% of you had no access to banks. 85% of you couldn't get credit cards or a loan. This is where Worldcoin Network is coming in. We're coming in to fill a void that's happened in the region because a lot of the banks in the region don't support loans like we do, like we see in the United States. We follow Sharia law. We will also be following Sharia law, but we will also have a lending platform. But the difference is the banks are under a disadvantage compared to what you see in the West. They can't charge interest, they can't charge fees. A lot of the banks in the Middle East don't make as much money, so they're not incentivized to give loans. So what we're doing is we're coming out, we're actually going to start loaning to a lot of disenfranchised people, and we're going to follow Sharia law, and we're going to give no interest loans up to $10,000. So the first time that there's a solution is cryptocurrency that can actually compete with the banks in the different regions. And that's kind of what Worldcoin is trying to do. We're really trying to make a difference. We also have regional coins. Basically what's going to end up happening is we also own domains like Iraqi coin, Afghan coin. Eventually we're going to fork Worldcoin. And the reason we're going to do that is because cryptocurrency needs to leapfrog in the Middle East if it's actually going to help people. So in order to help people, we need everyone's support to come and make different partnerships, which we've already made contact with different people in the region. So eventually you're going to see Worldcoin support probably 10, 20 different coins, and hopefully provide a more stable currency and one that is able to give loans to the communities to help people create jobs and hopefully make a more stable Middle East. Thank you guys. Somebody go track down David Moss for me from EOS. Anybody that knows David, you got it? So David, track down David. That'll be helpful. Cool. All right, so we're going to back up. I'm going to run through Moneta Pro, which is the actual ICO that we're running on real quick. There we go. And actually, this is working out well. The sound I was a little concerned about. So Moneta Pro is the ICO that we just launched under Big Bamboo, which is our technology incubator. And I'm going to start out this way. Did you know that there is $17 trillion worth of global cash and what's called non-cash trading? $17 trillion industry, and basically it's what's called corporate barter. This is where companies trade assets for other assets. They trade cars for computers, media for hotel rooms. The hotel rooms will trade for toilet paper, liquor. So it's a $17 trillion industry, but manually is how these companies still do it. So believe it or not, Caterpillar will call around and find somebody they want to trade an asset with. So Caterpillar will send $40 million in equipment into China, and they'll get $40 million worth of coal. And it's a one-to-one manual negotiated, very cumbersome type of transaction. And you might ask yourself, well, if it's so difficult, why do people trade? Why is it such a big industry? And the reason these companies do trading is it's a better cash return. So how many of you guys know towards the end of the year cars go on sale, right? If you're a CFO of Ford and you have to mark cars down, you have to mark them down at a discount, sell them and pay cash. In a global trade market, you actually trade at full retail value under a 1099-B. It's an IRS restriction or regulation. It becomes a tax-free transaction. So there's a massive opportunity if you can actually find a way to not create a one-to-one, but what's called a one-to-many. And that's what Moneta Pro is. We built a system that's a sell for credit exchange. Caterpillar can sell equipment to China, in return get a credit, and use that credit to buy other assets. So the credit is actually called a GBUC, a business usage credit. The token is going to be called MON for money. So we're picking up the token for money. We created a one-to-many transaction system. So we take things from offline and manual into an actual closed-loop payment system with a global currency that's not tied to the blockchain. So very, very unique within what we've done. Great company, a lot of things in place. We've got some advisors, many of you will know. We've got a corporate advisory board that's Caterpillar and PwC, IBM. I think we have Kodak coming in. We've got a couple guys in here we're trying to recruit, like Rob Trosick and a few other guys in the back. But a really experienced management team. We're doing a $35 million ICO. We started a pre-round at $4 million at 25 cents. Almost everything for us has to be done offshore, but we've got a few slots left for U.S. investors. It's a 6-month hold. And we're actually launching on a platform called Kamza, which is part of Tech Bureau, which gives us immediate trading in the exchange out of Japan called Zyte. And we're negotiating free with 2 other exchanges to actually already have liquidity the minute we go live. All right, so that's Moneta Pro, very quick. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
As Steven said, we cannot talk about our token distribution debt. We can't talk about our token distribution event. Just to make sure you understand that, please read my t-shirt.
Who feels they can read? Anybody in the front row that can read? You've read it before. Okay, this is funny. We're going to read the disclaimer on the back of David's t-shirt.
Disclaimer, the EOS ERC20 compatible token distribution is not available to U.S. citizens, residents, residents, or entities, and no information regarding the ongoing token distribution will be provided or discussed. EOS.io is free software that U.S. developers may use to build centralized applications without participating in
Thank you very much. Okay, that's a great logo. Thank you. Okay, so how many here know what a smart contract is? Ooh, okay, that's good. We're going to talk about that a little bit. What we're really going to talk about is where we got to, why we are here in the first place, what EOS is really doing, where we're going, all that fun stuff. How many developers actually do I have here? People actually writing the software? There's a couple, that's good. So how many of you have written a smart contract? How many people have written a smart contract? Wow, okay, so this is how far we have to go to understand that. So we're going to work on that right now. Okay. Alright. So, I'm going to take you way back for a little bit here about what blockchain is. Thank you very much. Okay, realistically, I'm not sure if anyone recognizes that, but basically the idea is that we're talking about, there's 3 stages that blockchain has gone through to get to where it is right now, and 3 stages that we've gone through as a society. So everybody remember what single entry accounting is? Basically, you're keeping track of, I would say single entry accounting was probably going even further back, maybe back to you're looking at your rock, you're saying, well, that's a really nice leopard skin that I've got over there. That's my single entry stuff. We actually have some real scientific evidence on these things, looking at what people are doing here. We had baked clay. Do you guys know this? Baked clay was one of the first ways that people actually kept track of their stuff. It was baked. That was the blockchain, the start of the blockchain, right? You've got a block, you've got the information on there. Okay, it's simply just a list. Okay, that's been around for a really long time. This goes back quite a while. We've seen some things going back for thousands of years. Okay, the Medicis, various other people, but around Christopher Columbus's time, the earliest records show that there was an actual double entry system that was developed. This is really exciting. It actually leads up to something a little bit bigger, but basically, they had to be able to have outside accountants do some other things along with it. And where's my slide here? There we go. Okay, well, so the double entry thing was a problem because it was good for you, not necessarily good for anybody who's interested in whether or not you're actually lying about your books. So anybody who's thinking about that, you have one set of books for you, one set of books for the IRS, one set of books for you, one set of books for other people. That kind of stuff really doesn't work very well. So basically, what it did do is create, anybody of you here work for a professional auditing firm? Okay, there you go. Well, we've got a lot of business for the last 800 years from people needing to have outside auditing of their books. So that's the way that it was put together. And you can actually see this right here. That was actually double entry accounting. So triple entry accounting. This was actually a real thing that actually really happened on a Yahoo list. You'll notice my little thing up here, I say source in grid. We actually have a guy with us, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, who also participated. But this is basically it. This is the start of the idea of the blockchain, right here. Earlier, people talked about triple entry accounting. What was triple entry accounting? Ian Grigg was one of the co-authors of that whole idea. Triple entry accounting was you got double entry and then you got a witness. Okay? One witness, that's all we needed, was one witness. That's good, that makes sense, but now you still have a centralized system. If the one witness happens to be your brother, and your brother is in with you on cooking the books, you still have the same problem. So basically, what happened then? People started looking at that and they came up with the idea of Bitcoin. That's just, anybody personally knows Satoshi?
That's my buddy.
Somebody raised their hand over here. Interestingly enough, Daniel Larimer, who's our CTO, actually, back in the day when Satoshi actually did actually talked with people on the internet. We have a bunch of different recorded conversations of him having those conversations when there was a person or persons that were doing it. Satoshi is out there somewhere with, we believe, what is it, $6 billion of Bitcoin, or something along those lines. We don't know if that person even exists, or if basically it was just like everybody else that I've talked with. In the know says it was just the CIA. But anyway, the idea of a shared ledger is where all this came about. So shared ledger is the blockchain. That's the whole idea. And the idea is that then you want to have a block of coins, you want to have all that stuff in there. The big issue was, well, how do you make it so it's decentralized, so you have many different witnesses? I'm not sure if you guys know about Bitcoin, about how it's mined. How many different major mining organizations dominate Bitcoin mining right now? 6? That's too high. It's 3. Okay, so really not very many people actually are participants. A whole bunch of people do that stuff, but it's a race to the top, not a race to the bottom. It takes more and more and more energy to be able to solve those really highly complex math problems that we have for the 21 million coins that have been actually, that will eventually be issued. There's only ever going to be 21 million. That's where they get more and more rare, etc. Basically, this is the first thing that was at scale. Okay, but now we have a problem. Thank you, Garcon. Okay, basically, Bitcoin improved the concept of a trustless ledger. What do we, trustless? Want to give a definition? Anybody? Trustless?
Yeah, let's do that.
Non-correctable. Basically, nobody can go in there and make a change. So that's great. Ethereum improved the demand. Now, what's Ethereum? Ethereum was an interesting concept to be able to do something and add the ideas of smart contracts into it. Bitcoin does not have the capability of doing smart contracts. That's why Ethereum is around. Ethereum, 20-year-old Vitalik Buterin and a number of other people put together Ethereum. It's beautiful. How many people hold Ethereum coins? Right now it's just something to trade on, right? That's all you see it, but the world really needed CryptoKitties, don't you think? Anybody not familiar with what happened? CryptoKitties was something that they came out with on Ethereum. You put a CryptoKitty on there, and what happened was it clogged up the Ethereum network so bad that they got 8 hours behind it, all their transactions, and it kind of messed everything up. And this was, for God's sakes, people, a CryptoKitty. That's all it was. It was just basically a unique hash-generated kitten, and it brought down the Ethereum network. And that's not going to really work if we're talking about doing 100,000 transactions a second, doing the things we need to do. So basically, we need to go further. And so if you're looking out there, if you're looking at currencies or other things like that, you can see the general performance things that people have to be able to fulfill. So 20,000 transactions a second up to 100,000 transactions a second are the kinds of things that performance systems need to be able to do any of the work out there right now. Thank you. The actual Bitcoin runs 3 transactions a second. I changed the slide the other day because 10 transactions a second is what, under the CryptoKitty jam that they had, they said, Vitalik said, I don't think we're picking him, by God, he's so brilliant. Really, seriously, thank God for people like that. But 10 transactions a second, they said, I want to announce that we have hit 10 transactions a second for 24 hours in a row. This is with CryptoKitties. Okay, so this is what you do. This isn't going to solve any problems for being able to put anything out there. And how many people in here have an ICO out there? A couple people? How many of you people, the people out there, have you heard about people, oh, I'm going to do my ICO and I'm going to build my platform on Ethereum? Okay? Okay, well, so it's going to be really slow. So that's great. But it's not going to get you anywhere. Now, all the reckoning, there's going to be a reckoning. Because people are going to try to build these things and they're going to find that it just doesn't go fast enough. So, what we started doing way back, we looked at the idea of the DAO. I'm going to change my slide there. 2013, 2013, the decentralized exchange. Everybody heard of the DAO and the lawsuit and making it like it wasn't secured. Anyway, it's unfortunate, but basically decentralized autonomous organization. I don't have slides in here talking about this, but we think now in terms of decentralized autonomous companies. The idea is that's where we see the future going. And so over a period of time here from 2013 to 2014, BitShares was launched. BitShares was Dan Larimer. Actually, Dan and Stan Larimer. Dan and Stan. Stan is Dan's dad. I'm not sure if you guys know all this, but he and his dad were trying to answer some of the issues when Mt. Gox collapsed. You guys know what Mt. Gox is? Mt. Gox. Okay, there was an exchange that had about $600 million of Bitcoin in it, and somehow it suddenly didn't. Okay, this is before a lot of people's time in trading Bitcoin and stuff. That's the kind of stuff that happened. Somebody walked away with hundreds of millions of dollars, and there were a number of companies that worked on doing the settlement, like the Bernie Madoff settlement, but it was a pretty big deal at the time. So that was BitShares, and then we had BitShares 2.0 that added a number of different smart contracts things and actually went pretty down fast. That was also Dan Larimer, right? That's the guy who's part of the EOS team here. And then we had Steam. What was Steam? Anybody you seen out there what Steam is? You know what it is? Okay. It is, again, somebody say Reddit on the blockchain. Okay, well, it's really not Reddit because Reddit has about 800 million users. Steam does not have 800 million users, but the blockchain is transparent to the users on Steam. You don't know that you're on the blockchain. You don't even have to know. You post stuff there, you get rewards, they're all done with smart contracts, you can vote stuff up, you can participate, you can make actual money. So that was the idea of the whole Steam approach, and that was great. What happened was, when Dan finished doing Steam, he said, darn, I wish I could do this again and not have to write everything from scratch, because I got these really cool ideas about creating just a general platform and then writing a whole bunch of applications. So, that's basically what we started looking at, was how would you go about doing that? Right now, somebody was just out there talking with me about this. So, gee, wouldn't it be really cool if, they had an operating system like maybe iTunes, and you could write a whole bunch of applications on it, or like an iPhone, and you had a whole bunch of applications, or put songs on it, or whatever, and all the users would put those things on there, and you wouldn't have to worry about that. You'd build the platform, all the content providers would come. Okay, well, that's basically what people want to be able to do, but that's non-trivial. It's like saying, okay, I want to do an ICO. And to do my ICO, I have to write the equivalent of the Mac OS X operating system, and then I need to write my application. That's what people are doing, by the way. I get a lot of companies that are coming in that I talked to. I've talked to about 200 companies so far building on EOS, and that's what in some cases they're doing, is they're saying, well, we thought we would just do the blockchain component ourselves, and I said, oh great, well I'm thinking about building the engine on my next car myself, because I really like the Tesla, the outside of the Tesla, but I think maybe I can come up with something. Anyway, so that doesn't really work. The next part of it, we had to look at, well, what do applications require? This is all really pretty obvious stuff, right? You want to be able to scale to millions of users, you got to do all these other things, but it's blockchain, it's got to work on the blockchain. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of things that have to work on the blockchain. So, we're looking at a number of things. Here's some kind of technical slides, but basically, we decided that databases, account permissions, and scheduling and authentication and inter-app communication, those things were kind of fundamental building blocks. That's what we've been working on, and we got a good portion of that done. And then we want to be able to have parallel processing of smart contracts. But basically, what EOS is an operating system. And that's really what we're designing. We're not going to try to go out there and do the Costco move. Although what the Costco move is, anybody here work for Costco? Okay, I'll tell you what the Costco move is. We love your product. We get it in every Costco store on the planet. Oh, by the way, it's 2 months in. We need you to sell your products to us cheaper. Oh, it's about a year in. Oh, we need to put Kirkland's signature on it, and it's no longer your product name. Oh, about 2 years in, guess what? We've discontinued your product. It's now going to be called Kirkland's signature, and we're sourcing it in Bangladesh, wherever we're sourcing it. And that's it, you're gone. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're an operating system. We're going out there and looking for people to build applications on this operating system. Add apps, add content to this operating system. So there's a lot of different stuff that we need to do. You guys will hear a lot about governance, and I'm not going to go too much into that today. That's something we're actually working on right now. And the governance part, what is, I guess the best way to explain governance, I don't think I need this anymore. I have this giant, really handsome, great-looking guy with a nice suit on as a pointer. It didn't work for me. Well, I'll try. I think that I was maybe just sweating on it too much or something. Governance, what is governance? Governance is the ability for a number of different block producers to work interdependently with each other. What we've been building, what we believe out there. Who's read our white paper, the EOS white paper? Wow, I feel for you. It's a long white paper. It's really technical. I mean, it's kind of like, if you want to read it before you go to bed, it's great. Well, okay. So can you talk about Merkle trees? You want to talk about Merkle trees? Okay, well, you can talk about Merkle trees. That's great. So the idea here is that there's a lot of different things that we need to be able to do for governance. What is governance? When we launch in June, we're not actually going to launch. Y'all understand that, what I'm saying? We're not going to be launching the blockchain. We are building the software to launch the blockchain. And then we are giving it to 21 block producers who will be voted on by each other, have a constitution, have adjudication and arbitration rules set inside of each block that's being produced, and then they will figure all of that out themselves. It's probably, again, going to be a race to the top like Bitcoin mining. You're not going to be able to run it on your Mac Mini. You won't be able to. I know that you and I were talking about block producers and running it on your Mac Mini. But maybe that was Ian. Anyway, we can't run it on a small device. It's most likely going to be a data center, something along those lines. I'm working on those specs right now. We should have those out by the end of February. But this is a really big change here. We're giving this away. This is MIT open source software. This is not something that we're going to be running. Now, we may eventually do private blockchain things. We are building some dApps to sit on top of it. Everybody know what a dApp is? Decentralized application. We are building some of those things there as well. But we're not launching the blockchain. We're helping others launch the blockchain. Anybody who's going to be launching it as a block producer has to be at the most minority owned by either another block producer and or Block One. Block One will not have a majority interest in any company that's a block producer. Period. It is, it's actually closer even to Centros, because Red Hat, we're not going to be charging, right now we have no plans to charge for maintenance or anything like that. Red Hat charges for maintenance for what is their free product, which is Centros. So but basically it's the same basic idea. We're delivering that, so yes, that's good. So I can't talk about tokens, not like tokens that you're buying, but tokens that will be used in the utility system where we're putting everything out there. And the tokens that you'll be using are staking. Anybody know what staking is? That has nothing to do with vampires. Or maybe it does, but staking means that you are taking a token, plugging it in, saying, I want this much bandwidth, I want this much allocation, I want this much storage, I want these various things, and I'm going to do that for running my application. That all works on the operating system layer. Your applications, if you're doing an ICO for something completely different, you don't need to have EOS tokens to do that. You can connect with us through APIs, do other things like that. So basically, we have block producer nomination, we have an allocation here. This is what we're calling basically annual inflation. The annual inflation, and this may be companies that want to go on to become a block producer, is that the annual inflation right now per block producer is expected to be $50 billion a year. So run out right now and set up, get yourself voted to be a block producer, and you can make $50 million a year. It's not going to cost that much to run it, probably be a good profit margin. It's not trivial, but I actually am building the recipe so you can do it. So we'll figure it out from there, but there we go. So what we needed to do is we needed to figure out, well, how do we get there from here? A lot of people ask me, why are you even involved in all of this? I should ask the room. How many of you personally know Brock Pierce? probably half the room. So, yeah, I know Brock Pierce. Okay, Brock Pierce is really, we don't call this blockchain beach here anymore. We call it blockchain beach because almost all the significant companies have come out of Brock's head or people that he's associated with. And he's had extraordinary influence in all of this. And Brock brought me in to Block One to work with EOS last summer because that's my background is I build stuff. And I've worked with several different groups here in the room building stuff before. And that was the goal, is to be able to put this up. And so the first thing we wanted to do is build a test net. And we actually launched software last September. It was pathetic. Nobody knew. Nobody could evaluate it to tell it was pathetic. It was pathetic. I was embarrassed. I had to go out to the press and tell them, you didn't do this for me. I had to tell the press that we couldn't launch a testnet yet. And the good part was, well, we couldn't, and we never agreed to, but we had aspired to. So December 4th, we set internally the goal of December 4th to be able to launch a real testnet. And by gosh, we did. And we wanted a place for everybody to be able to go out there and play. Well, play if you wanted to put all the pieces together and you happen to know C++ really well. How many know C++ really well again? Okay, well, so early on, that's a little bit of an issue because C++ is a non-trivial language. There's a lot of stuff to do. Just to let you know, we have our developers writing C++ that's compiled into WebAssembly or WASM. And we have an EOS, which is the node that you use for each of the individual trading block producer nodes, and you connect to that with EOSC. Okay. That's way too much. That's way too much text. I just thought I'd say that, but basically that's what we do. And keep going. And so basically, we released this on all these various things again, and there we go. The features. Going the wrong way now? Oh, I think that is doing it. So features, simulated production environment. It is. What we're doing though, for those of you who are technical, I guess I need to say more technical stuff. I always apologize for saying all this technical stuff because people are going, they just literally hear it. It's kind of like Charlie Brown. If you ever guys watch Charlie Brown's mom, just wah, 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 wah. That's what it sounds like. Most of the stuff, for most people, I understand this technical stuff sounds like noise. But basically, this is as close to real as you can get. We've got 21 block producers up and running in a homogeneous environment. If anybody's curious about what that means, they can ask me. Right now we're doing what's called 2 seconds block time. If you're looking at how long it takes for Bitcoin and Ethereum to do it, it's way the heck longer. The next version of this will be 500 milliseconds, but I'll talk about that in a sec. We have basically, what we did is we took everybody who had created who bought at least one EOS token, and we put what's called the Genesis block. We did a large file with everybody for, I believe it was the 156th period on our token distribution site. I'm not supposed to talk about token distributions. On our token distribution side, we did that so that we could have everybody and their accounts in there, and you can play around in here for free. You don't need to have any EOS tokens right now. You can play around for free, so that's great. So now, once we finished all that stuff up and we all got some sleep, we're working on EOS Dawn 3.0, and this will essentially be the last thing that we're going to be doing before we actually go out. The last thing, yeah, I've got it. The last thing that we're going to be doing, basically, these things don't make a lot of difference except this one. This is really big. Last password recovery. Can you do that with Bitcoin? Can you do that with Ethereum? Can I hear a no? There's no one else that's doing that faster. What it means is faster throughput and faster reversibility of the blocks. We are generating, well, not less than 1 millisecond, but less than 1 second. Right now, our testing is on basically the testing is running on 2-second reversibility blocks. We're going down to half a second for reversibility. So it's super fast. Super fast. Okay, that's great. So we actually have a couple of developer tools improvements and other things that we're doing, including, and this is, I have to apologize. Anybody who's looking at our documentation right now, I apologize publicly. We have a lot of work to do. That was always our intent. a lot of us are real techies and we're trying to build the best possible software we can. We don't have the best possible documentation yet. So we're working on the best possible documentation, tutorials. We have a whole group of people, that's all they're going to be doing between now and June to make things a lot easier for everybody. We do have a full app tutorial. We have tic-tac-toe. You can go out there and see. Well, this is it right here. So that
I started to realize how big of a technology the blockchain is, and I'm a big believer that the blockchain represents something much larger than even the internet does. I think in the future we'll look back on the internet and view it as a small time in history where we didn't yet have the blockchain. And I got involved by studying the technology very deeply, and I quickly saw the limits of existing platforms. I saw the promise for the first time we could transfer value digitally without any intermediaries, and that's phenomenal. It changes everything from finance to your vote, to stocks, equities, anything of value, which is almost everything. I found my business partner, Dan Larimer, and his invention of delegated proof of stake. And I started to see a more practical approach to the blockchain that I thought was in line with proven concepts at scale and in line with how we do business today.
I've been in the blockchain industry since 2009. I was trying to invent cryptocurrency when I discovered Bitcoin. Then in 2013, I realized there's a need for a decentralized exchange because I saw the governments going after the exchanges and shutting down their bank accounts. That's when I came up with the concept of decentralized autonomous companies and how Bitcoin can be described like that. So I built BitShares. It was my first project. It's a fully functional decentralized exchange with assets that peg to the dollar or gold or euro. And that was a very successful project that taught me a lot. We had to innovate and create high-performance blockchains, and that was the very first one I did. The second project I did was called Steam. Steam is the first blockchain that is so easy to use that you don't even realize you're using a blockchain. It rewards people for contributing to the community in a massive decentralized allocation of resources based upon production of content. People upvote posts and you get paid. Really phenomenal. After doing BitShares and Steam, I realized, hey, I can generalize this and create tools.
Stuff that we're doing, a lot of things coming out. Q1 2018, the end of Q1, we will have our last testnet. And one final thing, how many of you guys know about Everpedia? Everpedia is a blockchain version of Wikipedia. We have funded it, and we're going to do what's called an airdrop. And that airdrop, we were talking, Dan and I and the other people team were just talking earlier today. It looks like that's going to be happening around the end of February for anybody who's interested. So that's basically it. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you coming out, and see you out there on the blockchain.
Don't go anywhere yet. We have one more, but we're going to leave the speakers up.
Okay, ich glaube, da bin ich auf eine Verkaufsveranstaltung geraten. Also, das Meetup war eigentlich relativ geil. Die Leute waren richtig cool, um es mal von Anfang an zu sagen. Oh, fuck. Die Leute waren richtig cool. Vom Rentner bis zum 16-jährigen Entwickler waren alle dabei. Ich habe vielen Leuten gesprochen, alle sind voll überzeugt und alle von dem Hypefieber. Vor allem die Rentner, die jetzt einsteigen wollen, weil ihre Söhne vor 5 Jahren gesagt haben, ja, kauf dir mal 1, 2 Bitcoins. Und die jetzt sehen, krasse Scheiße, jetzt ist es so abgegangen. Und viele Entwickler waren da. Ich wollte eigentlich auch dann nochmal mit jemandem sprechen, aber die Leute, die wirklich was zu sagen haben, waren da ein bisschen überlagert. Was mir dann nicht so gut gefallen hat, war eigentlich, dass es anfangs so eine richtig krasse Verkaufsveranstaltung war. Also dann wurde wieder irgendwas mit Blockchain erwähnt und Cannabis, dass man das irgendwie legitimieren kann mit QR-Codes und irgendwelche komischen Scheiße, dass man da investieren soll und dass man da irgendwas kaufen soll. Und das war dann wirklich irgendwie wieder so ganz kompliziert. Dann gab es noch, muss ich überlegen, was mit Healthcare und Blockchain, das hat aber auch nicht irgendwie so richtig zusammengepasst. Und dann dieser Worldcoin oder wie der hieß, das war dann auch wieder so etwas, was für Entwicklungsländer gelten sollte. Aber warum sollte man den nehmen, wenn es schon den Bitcoin gibt, also oder Dash oder was weiß ich. Ja? Dann der EOS Token war eigentlich eine ganz coole Vorstellung. Der hat es halt so von hinten auf aufgezogen. Die Geschichte von Bitcoin, wie es alles entstanden ist, wozu die Blockchain da ist, den Leuten halt nochmal viel erklärt, das war ganz cool. Das hat sich dann schon ein bisschen in die Länge gezogen und das eigentliche, was der EOS-Token aussagt, wurde dann nicht so wirklich erwähnt. Also das war ein bisschen komisch. Und der EOS-Token, so wie ich es verstanden habe, soll irgendwie Transaktionen innerhalb von 3 Sekunden ermöglichen. Aber ich weiß jetzt auch nicht wie, also das war irgendwie technisch auch noch nicht so dargelegt, wirklich. Mal gucken, wo ich bin. Es war irgendwie nicht so technisch dargelegt. Und muss ich weiterlaufen? Ja, ich muss noch jetzt weiterlaufen. Okay, das ist eine Ampel. Also es war überhaupt nicht technisch dargelegt, es war irgendwie ein bisschen komisch. Naja, auf jeden Fall, ich habe viele interessante Leute getroffen. Alle sind im Hypefieber und hat auf jeden Fall Spaß gemacht, da mal teilzunehmen. Ich versuche noch mal einen oder anderen neuen Meetup mich anzumelden und dabei zu sein. Und das werde ich natürlich auch auf Kamera dokumentieren. Ich hoffe, das Gespräch mit dem, also das, was der Typ von der Adam Moss gesagt hat, ist alles aufgenommen worden bei mir auf der Kamera, weil die Kamera wurde überhitzt. Und ja, hoffe, dass es euch gefallen hat. Hier der kleine LA-Blog mit ICOs und ein wenig Sightseeing am Anfang. Wir sehen uns morgen wieder.